All right, what's going on, Funalytics? I think we are live. I'm just gonna double check and make sure that you guys can see me. Say hashtag live. If you're here, if you're live, tell us. If you're watching the replay, let us know right now. We're here with Big John Henderson. Man, I'm excited because I've been doing this online marketing, this internet marketing
Hey,
thing.
Mikhail, John's my brother.
Jason, sorry, I apologize. I apologize. My mistake. I didn't mean that. But I've been doing this internet marketing thing for a really long time. But like compared to you, Jason, I'm a newbie in this world. You've been doing this since 1996, over 22 years now. You've sent emails that have reached billions of people. Like, sometimes, do you sit back and actually think about that, like billions of inboxes? That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. 700 million in generated revenue from your emails. So we're going to dive into a lot of this stuff. We're going to talk about all sorts of stuff related to Jason's experience with email marketing. And but before we dive into that, Jason, let's hear your not so humble bragging rights. I mentioned you've sent billions of emails and you've generated hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, but like, let's hear it. Let's hear it from you.
Sure. One other thing is I've split tested over 500 million emails as well. That's what Clayton Makepeace told his students that he was most interested in learning from me is, you know, what I can speak to as far as the wisdom that I've gained from the 22 years, you know, the over almost 700 million in revenue, but most importantly is the 500 million emails split tested, because you really learn about customers when you're doing that.
So let me quickly ask you what that means, because 500 million split tests, like, explain to me how you can actually accumulate that many split tests.
Right. Well, what I said is 500 million emails split tested. So it's not 500 million split tests, it's 500 emails split tested.
Wow. Okay. That's insane.
Yes. So a lot of my clients have had lists in the millions, 2 millions, 3 millions sometimes. So I see split tests sometimes, and they're split testing, you know, version A to 10,000, version B to 10,000. Whereas, you know, I've split tested, you know, version A to, you know, 250,000, version B to 250,000. So it's a big difference.
And who are some of these clients, if you, again, the not so humble brag that you've worked with and you've been rubbing shoulders with over the years?
Sure. John Carlton, $1 Million Mike Morgan, Craig Clemens, Gary Halbert's sons, Bon and Kevin. I've done a lot of consulting for them. I'm kind of like their go-to guy. Mike Dillard, Mike Koenigs, Justin Tupper from Revolution Golf, who was recently purchased by NBC. It's like the #1 golf site in the world. And what's cool is that it's been a lot of lower level and unknown guys in different niches like skincare, weight loss, finance, astrology, comic books, art supplies, the whole gamut.
Wow, that's absolutely awesome. So let's, like, 1996. I mean,
Al Gore had just invented the internet around there.
Yeah, like in 1996, I was 10 years old, I think, and I don't think I probably got my first computer in 1996, and you were sending emails. So let's talk about this journey. How did you even get into this world in 1996?
So I'd already been on online bulletin boards before that, and in college I was just getting it to be online and all that. And in 1996, I played my first year of professional basketball overseas.
Oh, nice.
And so I had a lot of free time, so I started delving into it. I started viewing source code and learning SEO, and I became the About.com guide to exercise. Back then, they were the mining company, and back then it was all about AdSense. So they would bring in experts to help us drive traffic, email, and stuff. And what's interesting is that, you know, people nowadays, when they come into email, they're learning for the first time all these advanced stuff. Whereas me, I thought I had a really good advantage in 1996. I was told, it's like having a one-on-one conversation. That's it. And so I learned a ton from just following that advice.
Okay. So tell me about this journey. Tell me like what has happened over the 20 years, ups and downs. What kind of businesses have you been in? Not just what type of businesses have you consulted for, but what has your journey been like over the last 20 years?
Sure. Yeah. In the beginning, it was small to medium-sized businesses, offline businesses that were trying to get online. I did that for a few years. If I had known it was going to be such a huge thing, I would have kept with it. Local marketing.
Yeah.
But that's what I started with. Because like everybody I met, every state, every country I went to, I'd meet these people, and it was their nephew or their cousin, putting their website on. They didn't really know anything, so it was kind of easy to get in on the floor ground there. And so just went from there. I went to a lot of events, Armin Morin, Alex Mendozian's big events back then. And I kept on hearing about Mech Labs and Marketing Sherpa. And I heard people talk a lot about it, but when I'd actually look at what they said and what people were doing, they didn't match up. So in 1995, I went to my first Marketing Sherpa event, and Mech Labs bought Marketing Sherpa, and they had the world's biggest email marketing conference from 1996 to probably a couple years ago. So I went for 12 years straight. Oh, and I even spoke a couple years, and just going there every year, learning from the top deliverability experts, top email optimization specialists for 12 years, learning what works best. That really stood out to me because, like I said, I started out, it's a one-on-one conversation. I can do that. And I was using images, not cute images. Nowadays, people like to use cute stuff, but I used, to build rapport, to tell a story, to demonstrate the product, provide trust, credibility. And when I started going to conferences, not the Mech Labs, the internet marketing crowd conferences, I heard all kinds of bullshit, don't use images and you want to send plain text only and blah, blah, blah. And, I knew from my split tests that was total bullshit. So that's given me a leg up on a lot of other freelancers. Is I go into these big companies like Revolution Golf, who's used a lot of freelancers before. Yeah. And I blow the past guys out of the water just because they're basically like robots. Everybody's doing the same thing. But if you approach it from just having a one-on-one conversation and figuring out what works best instead of just robotically sending the same type of emails over and over again, you just learn a ton about what works. So
that's a very good point that you mentioned about having a one-on-one conversation and then using images and creating that rapport, that connection with that person. So can you elaborate a little bit more on what you mean by having a one-on-one conversation? Because as somebody who sends out emails, your thought is that, okay, well, this is going out to 60,000 people. So having a one-on-one conversation is a very strange thing. It's not like this is my buddy on the other side, or at least that's what most people think, right? So How do you kind of approach that? What is your mentality when you write an email and you have that mindset of a one-on-one conversation?
Sure. I don't know if you've done, in-person live speaking before, but it's kind of like that. You don't want to be talking to the whole crowd. You're trying to find that one person in the room, and you're talking just to them. So it's basically your target prospect. Right. So it's like that. It's so you don't use, you guys, all of you. It's basically you're talking to a friend, across from you at a diner. You're having a meal. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. And 500 million split tests. So let's talk about some insights. What are some of the wisdoms? What are some of the nuggets that you've realized that like most marketers today have got it wrong? Like they're teaching, like you said, bullshit. Like what is that bullshit that's out there versus like based on your tests have proven to be incorrect? Sure. with politics today, there's this thing called confirmation bias. Obviously, one side thinks the other side suffers from confirmation bias, but they don't. And the other side thinks the other side's got confirmation bias and they don't. But in internet marketing, especially email, you find that a lot. Like, so for example, I see this a lot. Someone will say, oh, I split tested, plain text versus HTML and plain text won. And then I look at the email, and it was a tiny little split test, and the plain text was not really a plain text email. It was plain text looking with HTML, and it had totally different copy. The version B with images was just one giant image, just a little bit of copy. And when you study, split testing, especially the scientific method, you understand that that wasn't a valid split test. Or one other good example I've seen is that, has anybody split tested using images in emails or not? And this guy pops up in Flakebook, I like to say, and says, oh, I did. And the email with images didn't work at all. And I said, oh, can you expect, what type of email did you send? Can you send it to me? He's like, could you give me an example? And so he shows me, and he goes, yeah, I split tested having a header with his logo at the top and without. And I said, that's not a split test of whether you should use images. That's a split test of whether you should use a header. And I could have told you that. Your header doesn't do anything for you. So stuff like that. And then another good example is a big-time marketer. Most people know who it is. They had a high 100,000 list. And the marketing manager came to me one day and said, Big Jason, why did you send an email with images today? You told me plain text looking email won. And I said, well, you're right, it did one time, but I split tested. Their original design was graphic heavy and having a header and a sidebar and a footer versus plain text looking, and then versus plain text looking with actual direct response images with a purpose, to drive the click, tell a story, build rapport, demonstrate proof. And 9 out of 10 times, the plain text looking with images with an actual purpose killed both the template looking and the plain text looking.
Okay, so images seems to be something that you should use in your emails, or at least obviously split test everything. But
right.
It seems as though images is, especially when you're trying to tell a story. Can you give me an example of what you mean by images, like a very specific kind of? Are you talking about like using like, hey, I'm going to write a bit of text up here and then throw in a little meme or whatever, a little graphic image to kind of explain the point that I just made in this top paragraph and then keep going? Or when you say using images, how do you use them?
Yeah, I'm not really talking about memes. For example, I paid a gazillion dollars for this webinar boot camp, and I attended, and the expert, super smart guy, and he was talking about the opt-in page. He's like, oh, you got to use a really good personal image. You got to bond with your audience. You got to build rapport. Someone goes, oh, would you use that in your confirmation email, in your emails? Oh, no, don't use it in your emails. No, don't. And I'm just like, it's so stupid. It's based on zero evidence. It's all in assumptions. Just real quick to reiterate, when I was telling you about how sometimes people give examples of bad split tests or a non-scientific split tests, like plain text looking with totally different copy and a crappy email with an image that doesn't do anything. I've seen a lot of people report that and they go, aha, I knew it. I knew plain text was better. So that's what I'm talking about with confirmation bias. People see what they want to see.
Right.
And it's funny though, when you do all these split tests, you can never lose. It's kind of like Conor McGregor. It's like, I've never lost. I've always learned.
Right.
So the most important thing about split testing is what you learn about the customer. So more on the images I'm talking about. So I worked with a mole and skin tag remover.
Okay.
And so within the body copy, I was telling the story. Let's just say her name was Margaret, about how she had this mole above her eye, and how kids would tease her and everything. And I just didn't use an image. I actually did a animated image where one side had her mole and then another side had her without her mole. And I showed the before and after, which works great for weight loss and health and fitness and stuff like that. It works good for revenue from 1 month to the next if you want to demonstrate, make money online. And so that works well. A bad example would be I had a coaching client and they were in the dating niche. And so the expert they were talking about went to do an interview on Playboy Radio. And he goes, oh, yeah. He's like, so I wanted to test the image. And look at this image I used. And it was an image of the outside of Playboy Radio. It's a brick wall, just this tiny little picture. I'm just like, dude, what are you thinking? I said, get me a picture of the expert next to the two Playboy playmates interviewing him with their arms around them. That's what I'm talking about, using images with an actual purpose.
Right. So using images that convey emotion and like make you excited to look at the image, like more drive curiosity as well as to like, hey, who is this guy and who's these two girls with, or like that before and after, and like you almost want to squint and make sure that it's real, right?
Right. And one other example, so I'm telling a story about, it might have even been on Thanksgiving. I was talking about how I've been blessed, to be able to generate a full-time income by, just having an email list and sending, relevant offers to targeted lists. And one of the blessings I had was I was able to take my oldest nephew, Eric, to Cabo San Lucas for his 18th graduation.
Nice.
High school graduation. And I used a picture of me and him with their arms around dolphins, at the dolphin, adventure, stuff like that.
Yeah, right. So yeah, and it makes them bond with you as the writer and as the storyteller.
Yeah, because you can, look, I could try to come up with some kind of cute metaphor, some strong, powerful, vivid copy, but it's just not the same of actually showing exactly what it looks like.
Let's talk about email structure quickly, because you mentioned stories. How often do you use, and are all of your emails story driven? Actually, I've got like 100 questions that are popping into my head at the same time. Like, how many emails do you send per week? How many, like, how long form versus short? I've got all these questions, but I want to start with like the actual, when you talk about emails and you talk about stories, is every email story driven?
No. Email marketing is essentially, it's in the simplest form, like I was saying, one-on-one conversation. It's like the right message to the right person at the right time.
Right.
And by actually knowing what works best, by testing and actually tracking results, you get a feel for what type of email works at the right time. So, for instance, John Carlton says, sometimes just sell the damn thing. So he doesn't get all crazy creative for every single sales letter, and same thing with emails. But one exception to that, as I say that, I'm thinking of a huge example in the self-defense niche. I worked for one of the biggest self-defense companies in the world, and they have this Black Friday, coincidentally, promotion with their biggest partner. They have a $1 million+ list, and they've done the promotion for 3+ years, and their partner is always generating new leads. So it doesn't matter what year it is, how many, it's the same amount of new leads that they're always generating. They averaged about 200K. So one Black Friday promotion, I generated over $469,000.
Wow. And
one of the most best emails was the day before it ended. Now, my client, the email that they would give the partner to send on the day before it ended, which is Sunday, on a Black Friday promotion typically, was always just sell the damn thing. It's urgent. Hey, the offer, get it. But I thought, what? We're assuming that people have seen the previous emails.
Right.
We're targeting, the most motivated customers. Let's target both of those. And so that's one I said we need. Let's test a story-based email. And the subject line was "Rapist found dead on her floor." ...
Wow.
That's basically my formula: emotion plus relevance.
Okay. Emotion plus relevance. ... And then continue. Okay.
And then I put at the end, I said, I forget, it was like, last day or closing soon, something like that. And my client was like, wait, what the hell? Is like, there's only one type of promotion. We got to put the urgency at the front. And I said, no, we're not. Because they're getting bombarded with all these emails saying, hurry, hurry up, it's closing, expiring soon. I was like, no, we need to hit them straight between the eyes with something emotional. And I told a story, and it's not like I negated the urgency at all. I elegantly wove it in. But the main crux of the email was this long, emotional, gut-wrenching story with one dominant emotion, and then sprinkled in with some urgency. And typically, the day before that promo ended, it would get around between 20 and 25K, both front end and back end. And that year, it did over $100,000.
Wow. So it shows you test, but at the same time, know your audience, understand the market, and where, like, I mean, this is a perfect time to talk about emails because tomorrow is Black Friday, and like already my inbox, the amount of people who send me emails, and I'm sure your inbox is the same. It's like, some people have already started promoting. Others are like, keep an eye out for my email tomorrow because I'm going to talk to you about my Black Friday offer. What are your thoughts about Black Friday, actually? What are your thoughts about this weekend and how people go about it?
Well, you just mentioned one thing. For my private coaching group, I just mentioned that. I said, look, guys, when I did that $469,000, over $269,000 more than their average take on previous Black Fridays over 3 years, you'll see that Amazon and a lot of marketers have been sending Black Friday emails earlier and earlier, but the big problem is that there's been zero involvement. There's no involvement device. And it doesn't mean you have to do it like a survey or whatever, but at least get them to reply. So it's basically, I tell them, I was like, you're assuming that you got the email to your prospects on Monday. Let's just say someone opened it. You're assuming they're going to get the email on Wednesday and Thursday and then Friday. You got to assume that that's the last email they're going to see. So that you got to give them a reason why they want to be looking forward to it. So I just found through tracking results that getting them involved before, as you're doing like a pre-launch series, it's much more powerful than just like, hey, look forward to it and keep your eye out. All right, see ya, bye. I'm sure you'll get my other emails.
So when you say getting them involved, and I think let me just make sure I understand, because I was looking through my inbox and somebody sent me an email and he was like, they're very story driven, but what he would do is say, reply yes. Like I'm thinking of putting together something at 90% discount, but reply yes in order if you want to be notified when I do it. Is that what you mean when you say like warming them up? Okay, so getting them to actually engage with your emails and respond to them throughout the process.
Yep, doing a free live event like this, anything that gets them involved versus just like assuming that they're going to see your other emails.
That makes a lot of sense and not what most people do.
Right. I wanted to say something else about the split testing and results. Something I said just a while ago got me thinking about it. So with Revolution Golf, during pre-launch, really, curiosity-driven images, action images with, the golf pro, getting ready to swinging out of a sand pit, worked really well. They're driving a lot of clicks, and putting a video play button on there as well. Driving a lot of clicks, more clicks than the call to action text above it. And then when we actually launched, the first email went out and I'm like, holy crap, the image drove a ton of clicks, but the conversion was like complete shit.
Right.
versus the text above it. So I could have just, like a lot of other marketers, been like, oh, I should stop using images, just use text. But I was like, wait a second. So why did that happen? So you got to think about it. And what did I learn? And then I was like, wait a second. During pre-launch, all these action type of images were driving the prospect to an amazing free video, a golf tip. So I'd basically been training them the whole pre-launch. Oh, another cool tip. So I was like, okay, I'm going to split test it again this time, but I'm actually going to use like a high perceived value product shot of the, kind of like you see now, like a TV with the video playing, and then some CDs, stuff like that.
Yep.
And bam, the clicks, not as much as the action driven images, but the conversion was through the roof.
Through the roof. So you'd still train them, and you'd realize that actually the image was not the issue. It was just the fact that they assumed that you would get some tips. Interesting. And speaking of golf, this is going off of a tangent, but there's the tournament tomorrow, or the golf match I'm sure you've heard of, with Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson, and their one-on-one game or whatever, pay-per-view. And how often do you use current events, and when is it appropriate? And well, all of these questions are kind of relative, and it depends on your market, and it depends on a whole lot of stuff. But when you look at, because a lot of people will say, like, for example, let's talk about somebody like Russell Brunson, right? He'll go and mention this idea of Seinfeld emails, where he says, like, send an email every day. Do you believe in that philosophy, sending emails every day, daily emails?
It depends. I've actually had to help people get out of that. They blindly were sending them, and they destroyed their list.
Right.
So me, just personally, I like to send daily when I feel like it. And I've had a lot of experts and gurus come to me, and people quote them as being, hey, they're one of the people that do daily. They don't do daily. They came to me and they're like, do I have to do daily? I'm like, no. And so they pay people to do daily. They don't want to do daily emails.
So where do you get your inspiration from emails? Is kind of where I was going with this whole Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson golf match that's about to happen. Like, do you get a lot of your inspiration from emails, and say, like, because when you feel like it, a lot of times when I feel like writing an email, is like, I don't really feel like writing an email. I just know I have to write an email to keep my list warm. So where do you get your inspiration for your emails? Are you always thinking about the end in mind, or is it sometimes just to engage your audience and maybe send them to a video or send them somewhere? Or how do you go about your own mindset of thinking about your email calendar? Let's put it that way.
Right. It depends on your products and services. Like, I have monthly private coaching, group coaching, that I do a daily training every single day. I've started about 3 months ago, and I've given a training every single day for 3 months straight, every day. So I can send basically my prospect list an email every single day with the goal to go buy. So it depends. If you're just on the launch hamster train, it's going to be different versus if you have something you can always promote. And that's where you can get into affiliate offers and stuff like that. So it depends. I mean, daily email works great for a lot of people. I'm definitely not against it. I actually met Ben Settle one time, and somebody told him some bullshit like, oh, Jason doesn't like daily emails. And Ben asked me about that. I was like, oh, really? That's interesting. I just wrote daily emails for 6 months straight for Revolution Golf. Oh, wow. And he's like, oh, okay. He's like, I guess they misunderstood. I'm like, yeah, they misunderstood. So it depends. But my inspiration for the emails, number one, it comes from the market. So surveys, getting them to reply, going where they go, being subscribed to the Facebook groups that they belong to, the forums, reading their magazines, watching their TV shows, personal blogs. So I worked for Albert Protege in the anxiety niche, and it was just gold. I would find personal blogs of people that have always suffered from anxiety, wailing and gnashing of teeth, and then other people suffering from anxiety would find them and they would be commenting like, "Oh my gosh, you'd never believe," and blah blah blah. It's just easy. It just kind of like Eugene Schwartz, the copy assembles itself.
Right.
TV shows, movies, current events, like for Revolution Golf, every time there's any sort of golf tournament, I was using that. Tiger Woods in the news. Self-defense, oh my gosh. Anytime there's a mugging or attempted rape, anything.
Yeah.
Survival, anytime, the far right was saying Obama was gonna, hit the nuclear bomb, or Russia was gonna hit us with the EMP, all that. So,
yeah, I think a lot of people lose track of because for a lot of people, email writing is not necessarily natural, right? It's not like again, most people don't think about it like you do, where it's having a one-on-one conversation with a buddy, right? So you always try and find ideas of like, what can I write today? What can I write this? And like people get very bogged down in terms of like the structure and the nuances of emails and email marketing. What have you learned over the last 22 years that has made the process easier when it comes to creating and crafting ideas and emails?
It's basically what I was just talking about. Gary Halbert has a great article called "Interesting Facts." If you Google it, you'll find this whole article where he basically gives like umpteen examples of starting sales letters based on interesting facts. Scott Mongo Haynes was Gary Halbert's best student. He was my best friend. He lived here in Austin. He passed away. And one of the things I inherited from his family was this box full of books on quotes. I got George Carlin, The Best of Brain Droppings right here.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's kind of like one of my favorite TV shows ever is Grimm.
Okay.
It's available on Amazon Prime. It's based off the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. And I mean, every single episode starts with this insane quote. So I get ideas from that all the time. I get ideas from people complaining at the grocery store, or someone that has a favorable response. And then you relate that to your prospects.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. So speaking of TV shows, there is this, methodology or mindset. I'm sure you know or heard of Andre Chaperon and autoresponder madness, and the idea of open loops and closed loops, and putting hooks inside of your emails and trying to turn your emails into these soap opera sequences, into these kind of episodes of 24, basically. What do you do that in your emails a lot? Do you recommend people to do that a lot? Like, do you craft a lot of your sequences and your emails, especially if you know it's going to be maybe like a 5-day series? Does that intertwine quite a bit within one another? Again,
it depends. It comes down to what you're offering and what's your goal. It definitely works. But I've also seen people that have taken his course and they're trying to sell something, and they're trying to end with the cliffhanger and make them look forward to it. Me and Scott Mongo Haynes, we did a critique for a really good copywriter, and that's what he was doing. I was like, look, you ever heard the power of one? Okay, so every single one of your emails, you're trying to sell something, and you're trying to divert their attention to look for another email. Just sell the damn thing, focus on that, and there's really no need to do that. But if you're trying to nurture them and possibly just sell them something down the line, then yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's really good. Andre is really good, but the guy that actually, from my point of view, from just my experience, Gary Halbert I was studying, 22 years ago, way before Andre, and Gary Halbert letters, the GaryHalbertLetters.com. He was amazing at leaving and open loops, looking for the next newsletter. But he sold a newsletter for X amount per year.
Sure.
But then when you see an issue where he has something to sell, there was no open loop. It was just buy the damn thing.
Right.
So, daily emails where you're selling every mail works, doing the soap opera sequences, that works. My focus is on what works best for what your goal is.
Yeah. Now, obviously, again, kind of based on what you said, and everything is relative, but somebody just asked in the comments, like, are we talking about within long form copy? He's had crazy open response rate and response rates with the 9-word email. We're like, because a lot of times you can get carried away writing emails, right? Like you end up writing and then it's like, should I send this? This is like a novel. Should this be a blog post or should this be an email? Where, again, I know it all depends, but where are your thoughts? Do you tend to write longer length emails where people are scrolling, or is it, much shorter, like the 9-word? Obviously it's a very different, the 9-word response, you're trying to get responses. Like that's
right.
So it's very different piece of email, but what are your thoughts there in terms of length of emails?
Yep. It's kind of like the old thing you hear about, a woman's skirt. I can't remember it exactly, but again, like you were saying, it depends. Like if you haven't engaged with your list a lot, a really short email works really well. But now I see, like I've had copy cubs with a lot of my big projects, and a big problem I'm seeing now is that, a lot of BizOps scammers were trying to tell everybody that the shorter emails, the blind emails were working best. They never mentioned anything about how much money they were making. They're just saying they're getting a lot of clicks, which is bullshit. Because they're just basically trying to trick people. Yeah. Now I see more like everybody's trying to write a novel. And the copy cubs that I've been seeing, it's kind of like the Gary Halbert, John Carlton, where they're training their copy cubs, and their copy cub turns in their copy, and they're like, all right, awesome. So here's what I want you to do. So go ahead and print it out. Let me know when you print it out. You got it in your hands? Yeah, you got it in your hands? Okay, great. I want you to crumple it up, and I want you to throw it in the trash basket because they basically just threw up everywhere. And even the really good copy cubs I'm seeing, they've just been brainwashed, and they're just like robots trying, because they've been deceived into thinking that every single email should be this long story-based email. It's not like their words are bad, but they just, in like every other section, there's just all this crap that they don't even need.
Right.
That's just, your emails can't be too long. They can only be too boring.
That's very true.
Yeah. So, again, it's kind of like the stages of awareness from Eugene Schwartz, Breakthrough Advertising. It's right message at the right time to the right person. Again, you can add to the right length. An example, when I was doing Main Street Marketing Fusion for my Koenigs, I basically ran the whole launch, wrote all the emails, wrote all the affiliate swipes, and I had this marketer come to me that I knew personally, and he goes, Jason, what the hell is up with these swipes? They're so freaking long. My list hates long emails. They don't work. And because I personally knew him, I was like, dude, are you sure that they hate long emails, or is it that you suck at writing long emails? He's like, yeah, that's a possibility. I'm like, dude, just split test it. And he made 2 times more sales writing the longer emails. But then again, I had a coaching student come to me and says, hey, this guy, he's doing this paid traffic to this email marketing webinar, and he's saying that this proves that long emails work better. What do you think? I said, I don't know. I was like, I don't have time to watch that crap. I said, when I get around to it, I'll let you know what I think. And so when I had time, I registered for the webinar, and basically it was, well, look, so here's the start of the email series. There's like a full series, like this. Mm-hmm. And he's like, see, at the start of this series, look how short these emails. Look at the results. Now, look at the end of the series. Look how much longer they are. Look how much more sales that I had. And I'm like, I looked at the first email that was long, and it was the first email with urgency.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm just like, duh. So that's not rocket science. That happens in most sequences. You can front load sales on the front end by putting in, the first 100 people, or if you get in by today or today only, you get a special bonus. But typically, more often than not, you're going to get more sales at the end anyways, especially with urgency. And that's where split testing comes in.
Yeah.
Because I see this all the time. People say, oh, the way you write emails and look at these results. I'm like, that's not why you got those results. What are you talking about? So you got to be careful.
I got a question for you related to split testing and what your experience is, because I've been trained when it comes to writing emails to write them a very specific way. And now I can't not write them this way. It's just how I write, which is every sentence is its own paragraph. And you're trying to basically keep it as almost narrow as possible. I don't overdo it, but I never write it. It's always a sentence and then enter. And because I've been trained that people want to be able to scan quickly. And if you have two big paragraphs, people aren't going to read them the same way. Although that's not how you write blog posts. When you write emails, that's how it should be. What are your thoughts on that and the actual spacing and structure of an actual email?
Sure. My default, and it's not, do it this way and you're going to make X amount more, is I basically put my emails at 600 pixels width. I don't center them because back in 2003, 2004, I opened up one of my own emails and I noticed that my iPath went straight down the line, straight down to the left side of the email, and I had to scroll all the way back up to start reading at the center of the email. So I stopped doing it there, and that's what I just recommend. And again, it's not I split tested, made a gazillion more dollars because I didn't center. That's just how that's how the iPath works typically in people. They read left or right. So don't center them. The whole narrow thing is bullshit. It's not based on anything. It's you need to write in narrow columns because that's the way the newspapers do. Have you ever seen a newspaper with one narrow column and a gazillion pixels of white space? No. And another thing I tell people is go look in your actual email conversations with people. Who the hell is writing you 45 characters and saying, gotta hit enter. Gotta hit enter. No, it's not natural.
Right.
So the whole paragraph length thing, that's just, common that Gary Halbert and everybody else and their mother has said, is that you don't want to make your paragraphs too long because they make them harder to read. So it's just easier to read if you have shorter sentences. You just want to make sure that you mix it up. You don't want to have just 4-word sentences over and over again. You just want to mix it up.
Okay. I figured that's the case. It's just, when you, like you said, people get trained or they get blindly. It's this is the way you have to do it. And then you kind of believe that for the rest of your journey, and you don't really take the time to test. And a lot of people don't have the luxury of having big email lists to really run valid, statistically significant tests, right?
Yeah, I've heard this too. Is so-and-so sends plain text looking emails only. And I said, how long have they done that? Well, ever since I know. So you're saying that anywhere from 3 to over 10 years, they've been writing the same way. So from my perspective, they don't know shit of what works. But that's not why they make a gazillion dollars, just because they send plain text looking emails. It's just what they like to do. And that's fine for them. But I like to make as much money as possible for myself and my clients every time I send an email. That's just me.
I want to shift. Okay, so I want to shift gears a little bit, and this has been really valuable from an understanding of how you think about emails. But I want to talk about the future of emails and what your thoughts are when it comes to this, because obviously 1996 versus 2018, very, very different world when it comes to emails. A lot of people get a lot more emails. That's first and foremost. Your inbox is 100% flooded. Things like, Google and Gmail decide to try and decide what is a spam versus what's not, and move you in and out, and deliverability and all that crap. So when you look at the trend from 1996 to 2018, and now if you look at 2018 to say 2022, the next 4 years, is email staying the same? Is it still, are messenger bots coming over and taking over? Or where do you see it going? How do you see it? Is capturing leads via email still going to be the main source of generating leads? What are your thoughts?
I think probably email is going to stay the same. I think messenger bots is going to continue to grow, and other avenues. I'm sure with cell phones, eventually, there'll be something similar to SMS that might come along, where you can instantly message people. Yep. And but I think essentially it's just going to be the same. But the whole competition thing is just going to get worse. When I see these social media versus email, it's so stupid. Whatever is easiest for you to do, you should do it. You want to have as many channels available as possible, because you shouldn't assume that even if you have say 10 raving fans on your list, you can't assume that they're going to see every single email. Maybe one day they hit up Facebook and they see the message in your Facebook page, your Facebook group. And the only way that different channels work is through tracking. And that's what's awesome about Funnelytics. Funnelytics, UTM code. People make this so complicated. The damn UTM code. I always say, people are like, yeah, I invented this thing. I invented this real crazy SaaS called Google Analytics, and just simple UTM code, and you can know what actually is working and what's not. So in my experience with a lot of different niches, email's still killing social media, but it doesn't mean I stop doing it, because social media is great for engagement and building rapport and building relationship. And, even, my 7-figure, 8-figure companies, they don't sneeze or laugh at, additional $25,000,
For sure. Absolutely. And they all have their own place. They all have their channels. And yeah, it's funny when you say UTMs, so many people come to us, and it's like, it's really not that complicated. It's like putting your email, your links in a folder, like just try anyways. But I agree. I think every channel has its own spot, right? Like you need to use them in unison. I do definitely believe that if you're starting out, there probably is no better channel than email. You can't control very many channels. You can't, unfortunately, sure, you can't really control deliverability and stuff like that, and your open rates. Sure, maybe you can get them a little higher and lower, but unlike Facebook posts, where Facebook decides whether or not they want to show it to this person but not this person, you can't really control that, right? There's not much you can do about it. So I definitely think that if you're starting out and you're just building your business, collecting leads via email and then emailing your list and building that and maybe retargeting them with some ads and some content, that is by far the number one strategy you should be thinking about. So
for sure.
Jason, how do people find out more about working with you, or what is it that you can offer people if they want to learn more and become experts at email marketing? Where do they learn more?
They can go to beminsiders.com.
Okay, and what will they find there?
They'll find my private monthly group coaching, where I literally do a daily training every single day of the month, and every single Thursday I accept emails for critique. So today is Thanksgiving. I'm critiquing 3 emails after I have Thanksgiving dinner with my family.
Nice. Critiquing some most likely Black Friday emails, right?
Yeah.
Coming up, the weekend is well, look, man, I won't hold you from your Thanksgiving dinner. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. I truly appreciate you taking the time, and especially on a holiday, to jump on provide wisdom to our audience, man. It's been very fascinating, and even me now, I'm going to go and start writing some emails.
Nice, man. Happy Thanksgiving to you and everybody watching. Appreciate it.
Cheers, man. Appreciate you.
See ya.
Take care.
Bye.